The one that I really remember is when the Cardinals were playing the Steelers. Kurt Warner was always a family friend. My dad was actually on the Iowa Barnstormers staff when Kurt was the quarterback for the Iowa Barnstormers. So, my family's known Kurt for a long time. So we were cheering for Kurt in that situation.
I want to go back to the Bengals' decision to draft Jamar over Penei Sewell. And obviously, what was your role in that? Like, how much did you tell them, I want Jamar? Because from the outside, I think we all think the most important thing for a young quarterback is protection. How much were you like, no, the most important thing for me is chemistry with Jamar?
I didn't go in and say, hey, I'd love to have Jamar. I think the organization did a really good job of, making me feel like I was at least kept in the loop about the process. So, I was in here doing my rehab and, Duke would come down and talk to me about, hey, watch this guy. Tell me what you think. Hey, we're meeting with this guy. I'll let you know how the meeting goes. And I think that's all, as quarterbacks across the league, you see some guys getting frustrated. And I think all we want is to have a line of communication in those kind of processes. We don't, for me personally, I don't need to feel like I made the decision. You could go with my opinion or go without my opinion. It doesn't matter to me as long as I feel like, I'm involved in the process, and the organization did a great job of that.
How did you feel when they told you they were going to take a kicker at 5th round? And has it surprised you how Evans fitted in?
Well, I obviously kickers aren't usually drafted that high, but I figured if we're drafting a kicker, he's going to be really good for us. And then I met Evan, and you kind of know how a kicker is going to perform based on how he reacts and interacts with people in the locker room. All the kickers can kick it and put it through the uprights, but it's really how you handle the intense situations that's going to really make or break your reputation as a kicker. And so when Evan first got here, I kind of poked and prodded him and see how he would react, and he reacted exactly how you would want your kicker to. He gave it right back to me, and I as soon as he did that, I knew what we had.
Hey, Joe, I just wanted to follow up on what you were just talking about, Evan. You said you kind of poked and prodded him. What does that look like when Joe Burrow pokes and prods a teammate to find out, what they're all about?
Just make fun of him. Act how guys act in the locker room, see how he responds.
Joe, does this feel like a normal game? Are you treating this like a normal game, or are you letting yourself admit that this might feel a little different?
No, it really doesn't. Coming into this week game prep, it just feels like another week. Obviously, it's the Super Bowl, and we're gonna have to try to eliminate as many distractions as we can. But it just feels normal.
I know you said it's like another week, but I'm sure most weeks don't begin with talking with Tom Brady, and obviously a lot of us probably heard that. What was that like to chat with him and reminisce a little bit about that hit that Nate Clements put on him way back in 2004?
Yeah, that was fun. It's fun to hear him talk about plays in the past. He remembers every little detail about everything that's happened in his career, and so obviously you try to emulate a guy like that. He's had a great career, and I hope to get there someday.
You've talked about your strength, your play strength in the second half, coming off the ACL and stuff. How much has that changed you outside the pocket and making plays outside the tackles compared to the first half? How much more is that a part of your game?
It's night and day from the first half of the season. I wasn't really able to do any of that the first half, and I've really started to come into my own in that sense, making plays, extending plays. That's something I've always been able to do, and I'm starting to finally feel like myself, and able to pull out of some of those tackles when defensive players have me wrapped up in the pocket, and I'm starting to be able to get out of those situations and make some plays.
A little out of the box here, but knowing how you grew up with your dad being a coach, did you always want to be a quarterback? And if so, what other positions did you play? And if not, what kind of was the reason why you picked quarterback to be the position you wanted to play?
Well, I didn't pick quarterback. I got to my first Pee Wee practice, and the coach at the time, Coach Sam Smathers, I still see him all the time when I go back home, and he basically just asked me if I wanted to be quarterback, and I said, no, not really. But then he was like, well, you're going to be quarterback. Too bad.
Weren't a quarterback, what position would you play?
I wanted to be a running back or a receiver. I don't know why. I guess I thought in Pee Wee football we weren't going to throw the ball very much, so I wanted to have the ball in my hand. Obviously, I'm glad it worked out the way that it did. This is my career. I don't know if I'd be an NFL wide receiver. That's probably a pipe dream, but I can play quarterback pretty well.
Yeah, Joe, over the course of your career, when you talk to people who know you well, it seems like you're a guy who really enjoys contact. Why has that been the case? Why have you kind of maybe sought that out at times? And how much did you relish the hit on Warren in the 14-state title game against Central?
He, I don't know why. It's just part of football, and I've always loved that part of it. Wouldn't feel like a football player if I didn't. And I actually saw him. He trained at Black Sheep for a couple days when I was down there right before camp, and we talked about that. So that was kind of fun to reminisce about.
Was that the hardest he'd ever been hit by an offensive player before, or I guess a quarterback or anybody on that side?
That's what he said.
Joe, just two things. One real quick. How many did you play corner in the state championship game, and how many snaps did you play at corner?
I played every snap, I think. In the big games I've always played defense. They tried to keep me off the field in the games that we knew we were going to win by a lot. But, when we played the big games, I was always out there on defense.
And just the other question there, where would you typically watch the Super Bowl when you were a kid? And does anyone stand out to you? Any couple stand out to you? Any players, any plays?
Well, I mean, the biggest one that obviously I watch it every year, and we'd always get together as friends and watch it. But, the one that I really remember is when the Cardinals were playing the Steelers, and, Big Ben made that amazing throw to the back pylon. And Kurt Warner was always a family friend. My dad was actually on the Iowa Barnstormers staff when Kurt was the quarterback for the Iowa Barnstormers. So, my family's known Kurt for a long time. So we were cheering for Kurt in that situation.